To the Newly podcast, where you get practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. On this episode, I'm so excited. We're talking to my buddy, Tracy Kelly. He is a marketer extraordinaire, recruiter, all things strategy, and I'm so excited to be talking to him. Welcome so much, Tracy. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be connecting with you and having this conversation.
I think there's just so much value we have to offer here. And I always like to start by asking people that come on the show, what is your career journey? What your A to B, how did you get to where you are? Just a brief synopsis.
Yeah, I'll be as brief as I can. My A to B has a lot of subsets in it. Anyway, so grew up in a small family business. That's kind of where I learned how to work. I learned about what I liked and what I didn't like. Went to school, got a marketing degree, took a marketing specialist job at a manufacturing job, showed up the first day. They handed me a list and said, here are the people you need to cold call. Right?
Oh, no.
It wasn't a marketing specialist job. It was a market specialist job, which actually was a sales job, which lesson learned, really pay attention when you're doing it. But that turned out to be a phenomenal thing. I got to, because I was a little bit insecure about selling, especially at that point in time, I used the marketing skills that I gained in college to help build that, that sales process that I did. And from there, ended up working at another manufacturing place before getting into marketing agencies. I think that's when you and I met, was when I was working at marketing agencies. 2020 hit, COVID hit, like a lot of people, got an opportunity to do some self-reflection and realized that I really enjoyed connecting people. I had a pretty strong network of marketers, especially here in the Twin Cities. And so I started recruiting and helping people get marketing jobs and really leveraging some of the past successes and failures, a lot of failures in my career, to help people find kind of, really good jobs at good companies.
Mm-hmm.
All along that time, I was continuing to do marketing. So even though, 12 years ago, I started in sales, I've always done marketing on the side for companies. And about a month ago, I had an opportunity. My clients got to the point where it made sense to make this jump. And I'd kind of been planning in the background for a long time, but just really had another one of those revelations. I'm not
a little bit of both, probably.
Yeah, had a revelation that, now is the time of my life to do this. And so I am full-time doing marketing strategy for companies and also making myself available to my former employer, Celerity, for marketing, recruiting, kind of as an as needed basis.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for that. And you're right. There's a lot of subsets, a lot of roundabouts, and I'm sure a lot of knowledge that you gained in that process. And we're so excited to talk to you about what it is that you've gained. So our topic today is, insider career growth advice from a former recruiter. So I know I've seen a lot of layoffs, and you probably have too. It's just heartbreaking when you see all of those notifications on LinkedIn. So let's start from there. Let's say I lose my job today. What are the first three things that you recommend from a recruiting standpoint or from a employment standpoint that I do first?
Yeah. So the first thing I recommend doing, which is, by the way, like one of the worst things I'm at, is build a resume, create a resume if you don't already have one, or update your resume. I don't like resumes. I haven't been good at resumes, but they're super, super, super important. I don't like them because it takes a lot of time, a lot of self-reflection. That can be hard sometimes. Thankfully, there are some cool new tools out there with AI that can help assist with that. But just dust off the old resume.
Yeah.
If you're in the creative field, so if you're a designer, if you're a copywriter, even if you're, an SEO or ads, any sort of a portfolio that you can create is going to really help you stand out. If you're a designer, I would expect that you would have some sort of a basic website showing your designs. If you're an SEO or you're a Google Ads person, you don't necessarily need, or even like a copywriter, I guess, you don't necessarily need a website, but having some sort of a PDF with a collection of the work that you've done, that is going to really help push you to the front of the line, because a resume is one thing. Everybody's got a resume. It's just like a high school degree or some sense like a college degree. It's like that piece of paper that shows, yep, I did the thing.
Yeah.
What people want to see and what people are gonna what's gonna help you stand out is having these examples of work, tangible examples that someone can say, okay, not only does this person say they can do this, but I've got proof that they actually can.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to touch on a couple of those points. So first, you said that there's some AI tools that can help people build their resumes. What are some of those tools that you've used or ones that you would recommend?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of Chat GPT. I think that's kind of the popular one right now.
Yeah.
Um, it is amazing the things that you can do with that. And
Mhm.
so, I would envision a situation where you know, copy and paste your resume, copy and paste the job description into Chat GPT and say, hey, help me write a resume that takes my experiences and matches it up with what this job is looking for. From my experience, I use it actually quite a lot for some of the marketing work that I do.
Yeah.
Um, it's not going to do it all for you, but it's going to give you a phenomenal starting point that you can take, update, tailor, and make it your own.
That's great. Yeah, I've heard of people having, resumes, like you said, putting in the job descriptions and then asking it to optimize and all kinds of things like that. Asking it to help write cover letters, those dreaded cover letters. Oh, geez, it's like really crazy. So that's great. The other thing I wanted to say was you were talking about portfolios and things like that. I've heard from some people that it's good to sort of keep a brag folder whenever you're at an organization and you're working on projects that you're maybe heading up or things that you've done or things you're proud of, that you sort of keep a little folder where you can showcase some of that work if you ever choose to move on from that organization. What would you say about that, or what are some other strategies that people can use to sort of develop their portfolio maybe right now if they're worried about getting laid off or think that might happen soon?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Just keep a folder, whether
Yeah.
it's like Google, OneDrive, whatever, but just keep keep it available, especially, and then obviously be respectful for what the company policies are, like what you can share, what you can't. Especially at some agencies, you can't share the clients you're working on, but just be prepared. Have that stuff ready. Do it as you're doing it, not necessarily. Like, you don't know. You could get laid off tomorrow. They take your computer, they cut your access, and boom, you're out. You don't have anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, having if you look at it like marketing, like having the marketing tools, your resume, your portfolio, having those available and ready are going to be super helpful,
Mm.
when that time comes. But then you got the other side, which I would look at as more like the sales side, right? Start reaching out to your network, talk to
Ooh.
other people in your field, talk to other people in that maybe they're not in your field, but they're a little bit further along in your career.
Mm.
Reach out, say, hey, this just happened. Any thoughts, any perspective? I would actually encourage people before the layoff comes, we should be building our networks.
Mm.
That's bluntly what helped me launch into doing what I'm doing is, I've been on LinkedIn since I think 2011 and
Yeah.
just slowly just plugging away at it, making connections. I mean, Britta, you and I met through LinkedIn.
That's true. That's so crazy, right?
Yeah, our conversations started around, hey, I've got these career questions, or I got this, that, the other. And so, you need to have people in your corner.
Mhm.
Again, another thing before you get to this point is you got to get right with your finances,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Like, especially, I'm 35, so I'm like in my career, but I still have a long way to go. You know, every single paycheck, I put a little money away, you
Mhm.
know? You just don't know, so live within your means. I know it's, like, such basic stuff, but so many people in our society just, we're overextending ourselves, and that can be hard. I mean, I used to live in the neighborhood that was full of the Joneses, and that for me personally just, and when I say that by that, everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses, but, that just didn't sit with me, and I had to get out of that situation and, kind of right size my life, and just be honest with myself. Like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I've got. And here's what I'm comfortable with. And having
Mm.
that sort of a financial cushion uh, makes these times not as scary, right? Because if we are acting in a like a place of fear and scarcity and oh my goodness, the world is crashing. I don't know if I can make my rent payment or my mortgage payment. You're like me, I got kids. Like what happens if I run out, don't have a job? Like two things. One, you're going to show up more stressful in your job, and then maybe you're more likely to get laid off. And
Yeah,
then two, if it does happen, um, you're likely to take a job that's not right because, like you're so reliant on every 2 weeks getting that pay. And
yeah,
so that's a hard one. That's another one, just like I got on LinkedIn back in 2011, like that was one thing that I really appreciate my parents like forcing me to do because when I was working for the family business, we were making minimum wage, but mom was forcing us like, nope, this percentage of every paycheck goes into a savings account.
yeah.
And I didn't really understand the importance of it then, but now, it's really opened up this ability to be a little bit more nimble, a little bit more flexible, and be a little bit more flexible with where I go.
I think that those points are so important, and I think to highlight just a few of them. One, if we're in this paycheck to paycheck cycle, um, and we do get desperate, and we need to have, maybe the reality is you do need to hop to the next job, but then you sort of continue this a cycle of chaos over and over and over again, where you're just sort of job hopping to places where you don't necessarily fit well, but it pays the bills. And I have a friend right now that is approaching an anniversary at a I think it's like a 2-year anniversary at a job where they really took it because of the money and for no other reason, and they're finding that they didn't really do enough work on the front end to know what environments would fit them and how they want to work. And so what would you tell somebody who is trying to figure out, like, what is the best or most optimal career environment for themselves? Like, where would they would get the best out of themselves? What would you tell them how to self explore in that way?
Yeah, well, let me tell you a story about what I did a couple years ago, which was I was kind of in a situation that I wasn't excited about. I saw the writing on the wall. There was a lot of growth and change at the company, and as we looked at the future, I didn't know if I wanted to be part of it and if they wanted me to be part of it,
Mhm,
which is okay. That happens sometimes. Especially, I've spent my career working at small growth oriented companies.
mhm,
So every year, 30, 40, 50, 100% growth. And so that can be really fun and exciting, but that comes with a lot of organizational changes. And
yeah.
so again, for about and then throw in the fact that, for about 18 months, my life felt like a country music song. So I just had a lot of like stuff going on in the background too. And
Yeah.
so I still remember it. I created like my own like little mini retreat for myself, and it
Oh,
was really about I wrote down a bunch of things that I wanted to accomplish, and really it was just to have this career exploration. Like, I found myself in sales jobs, and I found myself in marketing agencies, and I found myself there were parts about it that I absolutely love, but there were parts that I didn't. So
mm,
I literally wrote, made a list like, what do I like about the things that I've done? Boom, boom, boom. For me, it was like meeting people, being creative, coming up with ideas, having conversations with people, like consulting people, right,
mhm,
in the sales process. And then what are things that I didn't like? I've done cold calling, but I don't like cold calling. It drains me, right?
yeah.
And trying to convince somebody of like something that they don't think they need and they don't want. And, I'm sick of fighting that. Right. So
Mhm.
that's really where I kind of so I wrote down the list of things I liked, the things I don't like. And then at the time I was using Google. I think in today's world, you could look at Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So, these are the things I like in my career. These are the things I don't like. Help me, create some ideas around what are some places that I like, what kind of a job should I be doing? And
Oh, wow. Okay, I love that. That's such a great, yeah, just really simply bullet pointing out the things that you like, the things that you don't like, and what kind of careers you should be aiming for. That's so good, only because I feel like there's so many BS job descriptions or BS like titles, like, like strategic, results oriented tax liaison or whatever. It's like, what does that even mean? I don't even know.
So, yeah, did that in conjunction with some personality tests just to see what types of jobs they recommended or
Mm,
careers they recommended. And that's really when I landed on, recruiting and marketing recruiting. And so then, so I had like, okay, well, this is the career path that I can leverage the skills I have. I can leverage the network I have.
mhm,
And then again, this was before I knew I was looking. So this is before, like somebody who may be getting laid off tomorrow. But and then I started making connect. Well, I went to Google again and I typed in marketing recruiting agency Minneapolis because that's where I live and I want to do something local. I looked up all the recruiting places, made a list, started doing my research on them, started connecting with people on LinkedIn, and then just started having conversations. Again, I was being more proactive because I wasn't, I saw the writing on the wall, but I it wasn't there yet.
mhm,
And so I just started reaching out to people and having conversations.
mhm,
Conversations with people like John Arnold at Celerity, where I ended up being conversations, with Laura King, who's in the industry, conversations with other folks running these organizations.
mhm.
And that helped me narrow it down even more as to the type of organization. So it's very proactive, but this is my career. This is my life. This is how I spend a lot of time. And so I take this stuff very seriously. And so that's what I recommend to people is really if I think you should always be proactive, but especially if you've got that gut feeling, if Sunday nights, really suck because you're dreading Monday, like those are the signs from whatever you want to say. Those are signs that it's time to start being proactive and start thinking, you know,
Mhm,
what should I be doing? And bluntly, I would start with that exercise first, which is like really getting honest with yourself. Like,
mhm.
here's the thing I love about sales. You can make a lot of money doing sales, but at what cost, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like I've taken jobs for the money, and you mentioned your friend that took this job, they're getting paid. Just because your income goes up doesn't mean your lifestyle needs to go up.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
if you take that gap and you just start, investing it or putting it even if you just put it in a bank account without investing it, like just starting stacking that, like that is your freedom fund, you
Yeah.
know, to
Ooh,
be able to, if you need to make a career change, and maybe that involves going to a nonprofit that you fully support and you're going to make 20% less. But if you've been able to build kind of that safety net and then also just keep your lifestyle like where it needs to be, um, you know, this is gonna sound cheesy, but you can be happy, joyous, and free in your career, right? It doesn't always
yes.
have to be um, anxious, and it doesn't always have to be. The other thing I've talked to a lot of people, while I was recruiting, and there's so many people, especially I've noticed people that maybe have got kids or like maybe grown kids, um, and people that have got a lot of experience. It's there are people that want to continue to climb the ladder, continue to manage people, go up and up and up. But then there's also a lot of super, super, super talented people that are like, I want to be a copywriter. I don't want to manage copywriters,
Yeah.
you
Mhm,
know. And I'm cool with being a copywriter because I enjoy writing copy. And I think sometimes we just need permission to do that, because like the traditional path is like keep going up, keep going up, keep going up. But my question is like, at what cost?
yeah.
So
Mm.
it's just, I think the overall thing is just getting real honest with yourself about what's important, um, and just being cool with it. You don't have to look at what your neighbors are doing, or what somebody on Instagram or LinkedIn is doing. Like, just look at yourself.
I feel like there's this theme that's sort of arising. It's not just in, you've talked about like putting away certain portions of your paycheck and creating this safety net. It really seems like also constructing a network around you, really investing in your network. And it seems like that has also constructed sort of a safety net for you in times when you've been in transition. And what would you tell somebody who says they hate networking and they don't want to do it? What would you tell them about it?
Well, first and foremost, I don't love networking events. I go
Yeah.
to a lot, networking events, and I didn't know why, but it's like I don't love like showing up and like trying to impress a bunch of people and all this stuff. I'm probably more like you. It's like I like one-on-one conversations,
Yeah. Mhm.
and so find people that you just want to have a one-on-one phone call with or a Zoom call. You don't. It's not. You don't necessarily need a huge network. You just need the right network.
Yeah.
And what I found is not everybody that you hang out with today is going to be right for you tomorrow, but they might be really important today.
Mhm.
Sometimes
Mhm.
we outgrow or evolve, but find some people. And then my whole thing, the thing that's really pushed me along, both professionally but also personally, especially being a dad, and just having a lot of questions about fatherhood and navigating challenges with that, is find somebody who's doing the things that you want to do.
Ooh, yeah. Yes.
I just had dinner with a guy who's got kids that are in high school right now and graduated from high school, and my kids are in first grade and kindergarten. And I just called him up and I said, hey, can we have dinner? And I just wanted to ask him. He's from I live in White Bear Lake, so he's lived here, raised his kids here. I didn't grow up here, so I don't really know kind of some of the amenities and all that stuff. And I just said, hey man, I got to get my kids outside more. I know kids are super outdoorsy. Like, what are some things that you did when your kids are my age? Where do you recommend? So, because he's got a phenomenal relationship with his kids, and that's what I want for me and my kids. So
Mhm.
go find people that are a few years older and have the things that you want. When I was really struggling with this freelance, do I do it? Do I don't? I reached out to a couple people that one, he's already doing it. He's been doing it. And
Mhm.
he gave me just a very straightforward kind of plan and approach. And he talked a lot about the ways that he failed. So I kind of got to learn through his failures. And
Yeah.
then I was also hanging out with a couple of other dads who are doing this too. And they really taught me about questions to ask. And I would bounce out ideas off like, hey, I think I'm going to be charging this way or that way, like what are your thoughts? And so it's just, I don't know, find some people that have got more experience than you. And then on the flip side, when you get that message, when you get that call, be willing to spend the time with somebody and help out as much as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny. We forget that people love sharing their wisdom, and there's so much wisdom to be had out there, and just asking someone to share a little tidbit of what they've learned. And I don't know if you believe this, but I truly believe everybody has something to teach me, whether or not they're a janitor or a CEO, they all have some sort of experience that they can tell me about. And especially if, like you said, you're looking for the people that are doing the things that you want to do, no doubt they'll have some great wisdom to give you. I love that perspective on marketing, is trying to see where you want to go. I heard somebody tell me once that as you're building your resume, building your career, that you're making sure that it's always telling a story about where you want to go and not necessarily where you've been. What would you say to somebody who doesn't know how to tell the story about where they want to go?
Well, the first question is, do you know where you want to go?
Mm.
And are you willing to admit that it changes sometimes? Because
Oh, yeah.
had you asked me, 5 years ago where I wanted to go, that picture looks a lot different. And so I think that's where it starts first, is like understanding, like, and just again, being brutally honest with yourself, like taking out everybody else's outside perspective. Because sometimes, we have expectations put onto us by our parents,
Mhm.
maybe by, our partners, what we believe society tells us to do. Like, maybe you went to law school and you've got a JD, but like you hate being an attorney.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
um, that's a lot of time, effort, and money you put into it. But if that's not fulfilling you, maybe it's time to make the hard decision to get out of the field. And so I think that's where I would start, is just really just being brutally honest with yourself. And
Mhm.
that's not something like, all right, well, I'm going to sit down for 12 minutes and write something down. Like, that's a process that could take 12 months,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would start there. And then, like, on a resume, how do we project that? It's really, you know, I believe that resumes, like you got to tailor it for the job that you want.
Mhm.
So take a look at the job and what they are looking for, and just pull out certain experiences from your past that show that you're on that trajectory
Yeah.
for what they're looking for.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just as simple as, you notice there's a couple of keywords in the job description, they say create a lot or they say strategize or deploy. Just pull a couple of those words and make sure that those words are showing up in places that are important. I think telling that story and first, like you said, telling that story to yourself, understanding what that story is. And I also really like that you talked about that can change. I don't know if this happened for you, but when I was a kid, it always seemed like, you're 18, you decide what you're going to go to college for, and then you do that career for the rest of your whatever natural life, and that it can't change. And I feel like we have this fear of changing our minds, but the truth is we're always evolving, we're always growing, we're always changing. And so we should be wanting different things at different times in our careers. What would you say to somebody who's afraid to change things and fearing that that it might be the wrong choice, or fearing what would happen when they decide to change that career?
I would say, like, again, just be brutally honest with yourself. And I would encourage you to write it down, because from my experience, when I've done this and actually physically written it down, it cements it a little bit more. But
Right.
ask
Seeing
yourself
it
the
on paper is totally different. Yeah.
ask yourself, what am I afraid of?
Mhm.
Is it the money part? Am I afraid that if I do this, I won't make enough money? Well, what does that mean? Well, I might not be able to, like, pay for my mortgage or feed myself or feed my kids. And then it's like, okay, well, realistically, like, how much does that cost? And maybe it's time to, like, dive into your finances, because if it's truly about money, then, like, let's figure out where we need to be so we understand, like, okay, well, if I want to make this move, this is the bare minimum I need to have for money.
Mhm.
Maybe it's, I'm afraid what my mom is going to say. My
Mhm.
mom helped pay for my college to become an attorney or whatever, and I'm afraid of letting her down. And okay, well, what kind of super uncomfortable conversation do I have to have with my mom that says, "Hey, you've really helped and supported me along this journey, but I just don't feel fulfilled with it." That's a tough conversation. Again, this isn't a 12-minute exercise. It's like 12 months, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, or maybe it's, I'm afraid that usually what it is we're afraid of how other people are going to perceive us.
Mm.
And we just have to get over the fact that not everybody's going to be fully on board. Not everybody's going to understand. But I'll tell you what, you get to the other side and people see you happy, joyous, and free. And they're like, "Oh, it's funny how their tune changes real quick. I knew this would be perfect for you," or like, "You seem so happy, like, you're doing the right thing." So, like, it's that middle part, going
Mhm.
from, like, "I don't like what I'm doing," to getting all the way over here. It's like, it's that part in the middle where a lot of the work needs to happen, a lot of the risk happens, the uncomfortableness. But going back to the people, and in my case, there's, like, 5 different men that I talk to that have been down this path, that are doing it,
Mhm.
like, going to them during that middle point and saying, "Bill, this is what I'm freaking out about." And then Bill saying, "Yeah, but you knew this was gonna happen," or, "Yep,
Mhm.
that's legitimate, like, let's talk about it." Or my friend Chris, like, "Well, write it down, like, let's write down all your feelings about this." And then so just having that support network. And again, it's a tight circle of people that I have, but I know that they'll take my call, and they know that I'll take their call.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so great that you have it's almost like you have your own built-in board of directors or whatever to help you work through those times. I also love that you're reaching out to people. I think oftentimes people will think, "Oh, I'm just being a burden," but 9 times out of 10 people love helping out. They wish they could have had someone help out their younger self, so they love helping out people that are, trying to find their own way too. I have just enjoyed this conversation so much. We're coming to the end of time. I just realized what time it was. I wanted to keep asking you questions, but you just have such a wealth of wisdom, and I just want to thank you so much for. I have a couple more questions too, but I just wanted to say right now, thank you so much, Kelly. I just really, really appreciate it. Tracy Kelly. Oh my God, I totally said your last name.
Hey, I've been called a
Whatever.
lot worse. Yeah.
Okay, so last couple questions. Here we go. So what is the most random job that you have ever had?
The most random job. So in college, I worked for my landlord to clean out apartments in between, that 1 week in college where nobody's got, they're
Yeah.
transitioning, which was kind of interesting because it turned into freelance marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's incredible what those kinds of things can lead to. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond your most random job, what is the worst career advice that you have ever gotten?
Yeah. So the worst career advice I've gotten was just, you know, yes, your boss is inappropriate, rude, disrespectful, but just, stick it out because people don't like job hoppers. At the end of the day, like, I don't like, we don't put up with that anymore. And I think more and more people need to realize, like, if you're being harassed, if you're being, disrespected on like a personal level from a boss, get out of that.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, no paycheck is worth that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, I love your counter to that advice. I really appreciate that. Well, we're out of time here. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us. It was so great talking with you, Tracy, and with all of the people. So have a great day.
All right. See ya.